Yesterday, I was asked the question about sovereignty. I keep getting this question all the time. But what if I told you that the Caribbean did not lose its sovereignty overnight? It was signed away, loan by loan, deal by deal, and leader by leader. And so the real question is not what happened, it's who is responsible. That's what I told the individual. You know, I don't know how some people deal with politics, but I tend to leave it for politicians. And I've given up on political parties a long time ago. But what sovereignty means? It means control over your economy, your borders, your laws, and your resources, along, I might say, with your foreign policy after independence from colonial powers like United Kingdom and France. The Caribbean nations were supposed to chart their own course forward. But today, many are drowning in debt. They're dependent on tourism. They are controlled by foreign financial institutions. So the question becomes now, did we truly become independent or just economically recolonize? That is the question that you need to ask yourself about debt. Institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, they offer loans during a lot of crises, and they sound very helpful on the out. But those loans often comes with conditions. You have to cut public spending, you have to privatize your state's assets, you have to remove subsidies, you have to freeze wages. You see, in countries like Jamaica and Barbados, austerity has reshaped their entire economies. And so hospitals underfunded, you have schools that are struggling, you have youth unemployment rising, while citizens are tightening their belts. You have political elite who keeps signing away your rights, selling the land. Because across the region, beachfront land is not owned by locals anymore, but by foreigners. And in places like Bahamas and St. Lucia, luxury developments, if you look at them, cater to outsiders, while the locals are facing rising housing costs. And then you have citizenship by investment programs. Of course, they bring quick cash, but at what cost? At what cost? You see, when passports become products, and when land becomes leverage, when policy favors foreign capital over local survival, then you're going to have to ask yourself, is that sovereignty or dependency with a flag? Because following that comes the foreign influence and the geopolitics. Because the Caribbean is no longer just influenced by former colonial powers. Now, global powers compete for influence from the United States to China. You talk about ports, you talk about infrastructure, you talk about energy projects. I mean, billions in financing, but often through opaque deals which we, the people, really don't know anything about. The Caribbean sits at one of the most strategic crossroads in the Western Hemisphere. And when global giants begin to play chess, small island nations like ours can become pieces in that game and pawns in that game, like so many are noticing right now. And unless leaders negotiate wisely, we are going to end up with problems. That brings me to the point of leadership and accountability, which will so lack here in this Caribbean. This is part of what you call the uncomfortable truth. Because you have external pressure which exists there, but leaders still sign the contracts. The leaders approve the borrowings. Leaders negotiate the terms. So then you say to yourself that sovereignty isn't stolen quietly. It has been surrendered gradually over the years. So why aren't Caribbean leaders held accountable for the unsustainable debt which we like to talk about so much? The lack of transparency, the poor long-term planning, and all of the corruption scandals which we talk about during an election campaign. Democracy does not end at independence, it begins there. But I don't think we have that anymore, because this brings me to the illusion of the cultural illusion that we have, where we celebrate the flags, carnival, independence day speeches. But guess what? Economic sovereignty matters more than all these ceremonies that we have around the region and celebrate in such grand style. A nation is not free if it cannot control its currency. Do you know that? It cannot control, even if it can't feed its people, and it cannot make policy without foreign approval. Saying that to you. Cultural pride cannot mask structural weakness. So the question that you have to ask yourself is, what must change for this to take place? We have to stop worrying about outside powers and blaming outside powers alone. They play a pivotal role. But this is about stronger regional unity, something I'm going to talk about in the next video. Smarter negotiations on the part of these leaders, transparent governance, and civic education, demanding accountability. You understand? Organizations like Caribbean Community CARICOM were created to strengthen collective power. But are they being used effectively? You see, my friend, sovereignty is not just about government issue. It's a citizen issue. And silence is complicity. I just gonna have to tell you guys, right, that the death of sovereignty doesn't happen with tanks. It happens with signatures in our part of the region. It happens with silence. And it happens when leaders are never questioned. I believe the Caribbean deserves better. And the future depends on whether our citizens demand it. So I'm going to leave you with this today. Are our leaders protecting sovereignty, or are they managing its decline? Leave your comment in the section below, guys, and I'll talk to you again another time. Take care.